The recent murder in cold blood of Tiamiyu Kazim, a football player, by an operative of the police special anti-robbery squad, has opened another conversation about police brutality in Nigeria. One killing too many is the emerging public perception of this streak of unfortunate incidents, which have led to a good number of Nigerians falling under the bullets of a police unit that should ordinarily be providing protection for the people. We're now going to dwell on this matter for some time by talking to Segun Awosanya, a lawyer, human rights activist, and renowned anti-police brutality advocate. Segun, good to have you on the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again on your program.
Yes, and Happy New Year. First time I'll be seeing you this year. And congratulations. You got an award recently, which I saw on social media.
Congratulations.
But before we go to police brutality, which is your main concern, I see you released some tweets about the report that we now have a coronavirus case involving an Italian in Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
We had Rutu Zodiri on the program earlier, and he said he was afraid and he panicked, when he got the report. Did you panic when you heard that coronavirus is here at last?
No, I'm not panicked. I'm not used to panicking because by nature, I'm wired to always look for solutions to things when we have crisis in our environment. I want to really commend the federals in their preparedness and also for the government for ensuring that they release funds ahead of time, especially since that broke out in China. And they've been putting things in place for immediate intervention once that case has been recorded in Nigeria. It took quite a while, and if we have not even heard the case rising up in Nigeria, we should be worried ourselves that are we telling ourselves the truth? Because this, most African countries have recorded this, and it's always good for us to check. And it was actually came at a good time. And if you look at the time lapse between the moment when they discovered and the period where they notified the public, it's actually commendable. And I believe that we'll continue to build on this and ensure that the Nigerian people and public are educated on how to keep themselves safe about this. And I think we'll do well. I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic too. I believe we can definitely handle this well, and I think the Federal Ministry of Health, etc., have taken the right response so far. Now let's move on to our topic of today. So, of course, we're discussing some bad news, some terrifying news. Once again, another case of police brutality, this time involving the Remo Stars football player Tiamiyu Kazim, who was killed in such a brutal manner. And I mean, so much has happened since this story unfolded. The police have come out to give their accounts. Of course, we've heard as well from people on his side and their account, the Remo Stars players. What is your analysis of this entire situation that we're going to break down today?
Well, I want to start by saying that the police has a lot of work to do in order to tidy up the signage within their organization. The police, no doubt, have so many silos that are just running amok, and they are aware of this. And because of the paucity of funds and lack of coordination by people and lack of responsibility on the side of the people who are meant to supervise this unit, there are so many things happening that we're not even aware of. The public, the vulnerable in society, or the entire public, have been made vulnerable now because you don't have to walk too far before you're abducted by any rogue unit. And because we don't know the difference between these rogue units, everyone we see without uniform is a Sars official. So if you're not experienced in navigating this, conundrum, you will not be able to know where to place it. The killers of Tiamiyu are not even Sars. They are Zonal Intervention Squad. And we have STS, we have all of them all over the place. So our advice has always been that there must be a protocol in place that sanitizes the engagement of these people. Now, tactical squads should not, must not, cannot be found roaming about the street aimlessly. They are supposed to be isolated somewhere and called only when there is a distress pertaining to the area of their specialty. Because when you put men of war on a peaceful street, they are going to make war. And that's precisely what we're seeing now. So some of them are just going out, they wake up in the morning, give themselves an agenda, and they start abducting people. There are specific elements within the police structure who are not there for policing at all. They are just there to harass people. They are there to oppress people. And we have identified most of these nodes. There are people even within the hierarchy of the police, senior hierarchy of the police, who are known for burying cases. That is their own job. And that's what they make money from. People know this, but they won't come out unless there is political will enough to expose these people and push them out of the system. We have done that before at a point when the head of the critical public response unit was burying cases and was blaming the public each time they complain about police brutality. He even gave us names. He even called us names that all the things we were saying was wrong. Until we put pressure on the police to weed out these bad eggs, these cancerous nodes within the structure. There are people all over the place. Even if you go to Edo State, for example, there is this particular CSP or this commanding officer of one particular unit that they created there. All he does is to kidnap people, abduct people, torture them until they confess to crimes that they want to hear, and then he'll run to the press, put out some communiques, and then charge them to court based on these fraudulent things. And we have been raising alarm about these people. And they keep telling us that they are so connected that nobody wants to touch them. There are CPs who are afraid of these people, who do not want to do anything. So when they come with their crazy cases, the CPs will have no choice than to approve it. So what we are imploring the first PRO to do is to ensure that anybody who is releasing information to the public on any ongoing case, it must first be ratified by the force headquarters so that they don't use this to decimate our youth or populate unnecessarily our prisons.
Well, I mean, you are right about the manner in which the structure of the police has become very confusing. Because in the case of Chamiyu Kazim, sometimes we're told zonal intervention squad, yes, sometimes we're told special anti-robbery squad, and you begin to wonder what exactly is the difference. The only thing that ties all these units together is brutality and extortion. Yes, but in spite of all of that, the Inspector General of Police, he responded quite swiftly.
Yes.
I would like to know what your assessment of his response has been, because he sent a DIG to go with the governor to visit the family. He sent another DIG, Anthony Ogbizi, to be on the ground to investigate. And it was on the basis of that investigation that certain consequential steps were taken. What's your assessment in terms of that responsiveness? Is it an isolated case or, standard procedure?
My response is standard. It has always been what we've been pressuring him to do from the beginning. We must not wait until people die before we start reacting to things. This should have been the order from day one. And this was our advice when he came in to say, okay, let us return the tactical squad back to the CPs. So this action that Tiamiyu would have been alive today if this action had been taken before. These actions are called stopgaps. They are not actually solution to anything. The actual solution still lies in the completion of the passage of the police reform bill, which we have already kick-started with the public hearing some 2 days ago. So is the CP's reaction, the IG's reaction, we're happy with it because he's finally on the page that we want him to be. And we just want an extension of this ban to be national so that all these tactical units and all will stop roaming our streets and abducting our young.
Absolutely. Can we shed more light, for the sake of our viewers, on the police reform bill, what it really portends, etc.?
The police reform bill itself is actually meant to democratize Nigerian police. What we have today is not a Nigerian police, but a police that belongs to the colonialists. The act of the 1943 Act, Police Act, actually set up the police to protect the ruling class from the people. So the way it is now, it doesn't have any consideration for human rights, and it doesn't respect human rights whatsoever. So the police officers themselves see themselves as oppressors, they see themselves as bigger than the people, they see themselves as people who can do as they please, and it gets worse as society becomes complex. Of course, there have been arguments that because of the complexity of the society, police must be armed, and must be thoroughly armed and all, they must be belligerent and the rest of it. Well, I keep saying that if you want to arm the police officers based on the complexity of the society, you are going to have each police officer working with armored tanks. But does that solve any problem? It doesn't really solve any problem. What we should be driving towards is an intelligence-led policing. And there are some terms that have been balkanized, have been, misconstrued by so many people. For example, community policing. You see people pushing for budget for barracks, and then they're still talking about community policing. The barracking idea is militant. It has no place in a democracy. And the community policing idea is not what people have been interpreting it to mean. Many people believe that it means that the touts in their community will suddenly be given guns so that they can become police in the community. Some people believe that indigents from certain areas who are in the police force will be sent back to their hometown to go and be police there because that's where they came from. But that's not what it means. Community policing is a system of policing where police and society are not differentiated. They are one and the same. Police live in the society. Police, aside from performing criminal investigation, they have interaction with the people outside criminal investigation. For example, police go to school to teach in schools. In colleges, they go to marketplaces to discuss with people and to find out what their needs will be. They share ideas of where the police is going and how they can best help the people. With this, they earn trust from the people. And when they get trust from the people, it is easier for them to get intels and then use this information to begin to, monitor society and police society, while they expose themselves also to accountability, transparency, and fairness to the people. And this is exactly what the police bill, the new police reform bill, is doing, to democratize the police, open it up to the public, ensure that the statement, the police is the public and the public is the police, is true in the case of Nigeria, rather than having police is your friend Monica that has nothing to do with reality.
Well, Segun, we'll take a short break, but before we do so, now that you've brought up the issue of community policing, the police reform bill, now there are some Nigerians who even think that this police structure that we have is not federal enough, it's unacceptable, and they are pushing for state police. Okay. In addition to state police, you know already that some states are coming up with security networks. Yeah. Operation Amotekun in the southwest, Operation Ogbunigwe in the southeast, Operation Shege Kafasa in the northern part of the country. I would like to have your thoughts on these responses to police inefficiency by communities and states and stakeholders. But let's take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us in our Lagos studio is Segun Awosanya, a lawyer, human rights activist, and a renowned anti-police brutality advocate. So I'd asked you the question.
People always assume I'm a lawyer.
Oh, really? I thought you were a lawyer.
No.
Okay.
I studied law. I'm an advocate. I studied law as land law under estate management.
Okay, you're an estate manager. Yeah, so originally.
Originally. So my constitutional law and all this, they are just on the side. They are not.
Okay, okay.
We'll put out a red alert.
We know that. But it's correct to call you a human rights activist.
Yes.
Correct.
Advocate.
Advocate, okay. But I wanted you to comment on this proliferation of security networks and also the idea of state police. Only recently, Senator Ike Ekweremadu retabled, a bill calling for state police in Nigeria, beyond community policing and all this police reform bill.
My response to that will be that we need to get a proper understanding of the political space of Nigeria first, before we can now begin to, pick up terms that we give our own meanings to. Just like community policing, not everybody who talks or who speaks in that language understands what it means.
Even the police themselves.
Even the police themselves, they don't really know what it is. So you cannot advocate for state policing without the state controlling their own resources. You cannot advocate for state policing with the nature of the kind of polity that we're practicing in terms of politics that we're practicing in Nigeria today. Imagine a state police in the hands of a governor that is not responsible. Will he ever lose an election? So we must look at it holistically, that what exactly works for Nigerians. If you're looking at the region coming together to agree on a security architecture to help the police, it's a different ballgame entirely, provided that they're going to avoid the pitfalls that the police had an issue. Now, when you look at the police system itself, what exactly is lacking? Checks and balances. Who is holding them accountable? Where the Police Service Commission, for example, It is supposed to be responsible for promotion, recruitment, discipline, and the rest. But of course, you've seen the kind of squabbles they have in terms of recruitment, because the way the whole thing was structured, the IG have to finance the activities of the Police Service Commission. How do you control somebody that you pay? How do you take order from somebody that you're actually fending for? It becomes difficult. If the Police Service Commission needs to go and inspect anything within the police architecture, they have to wait for funding from the IG. So if the IG doesn't want them to look at anything, all he has to do is just cut their funding and say we don't have money. And that's the end of the Police Service Commission. So that's one of the reasons why you're having law cases between the IG and the Police Service Commission when it comes to recruitment. Because they say constitutionally, they are supposed to do the recruitment. It's within their prerogative. But also, the IG is supposed to fund it. So if I'm funding something or earmarking funds for this, and then you are the one carrying it out, and there's a problem between us, I can easily look for alternative use of my funds. So there are so many things that we need to structure. So if you are bringing in security architecture as agreed by regional governments and the rest, we must look at, one, how transparent, how accountable, and how efficient will this run? What is the criteria for bringing people into this? How lawful are these things? Are they in line with the laws of the land, and how are they going to operate it? Because if you look at it now, we're saying that Amotekun and the rest of them are intelligence gathering organizations that want to help strengthen the police in itself. Are the police themselves seeing them as that? What is the level of orientation and understanding of the public about this? Because as far as the public is concerned, this is just something to checkmate the police, or the excesses of the police and excesses of insurgents within the state and people coming into the state that the police cannot confront. So there's so many ambiguity within this conundrum, and we need to be very careful with the way we champion this, with the way we advertise this, and with the way we hope on making this the solution to our problems. The solution remains looking holistically at the police, looking at what laws, because anything we put in place now, they are simply stopgaps. If the police are not equipped, are not funded, are not repositioned, to function effectively in service to the people, any other architecture that is set up, to support a dying system is going to end up like the system that they're supposed to support.
Well, solution would be a fast stretch, but it is one proposed solution that I guess has gotten people feeling a bit more hopeful for many reasons and situations. I'll give you a recent example that we've been speaking about lately in the news about the Commissioner of Police in Delta States, who literally had the public go and exhume bodies in order for him to feel as though he's gotten proof about clashes with herdsmen happening within the state and herdsmen having killed people within the state. It had to get to the point of exhuming bodies, right? And we're seeing that that's not the life that people want to live. So really and truly, how do you think this idea of regional security networks or state security networks is actually going to play out with the police? Because I assume, for example, if there was a state security network in Delta State when that happened, it would have been that security network that would have gone and informed the police that, look, herdsmen killings are happening in the states, etc., etc. But if we're having commissioners of police asking for bodies to be exhumed, then, we're in a serious situation here.
Yeah, you're very correct. And I must say that we must wean ourselves from hoping for messiahs or creating architectures just to solve problems that we ought to take responsibility for ourselves. I'm speaking to you today as an ordinary Nigerian citizen. I don't have any office. So don't let the echo of the name and the calling or come and help us here and there make me feel, maybe I'm some important person. I'm just an ordinary citizen. And each one of us have a role to play in society. Until the society begins to police the police and the police begin to embrace society and serve them, we cannot have the kind of security architecture that we deserve. So it's not about setting up architecture. It's about the people taking responsibility and contributing, to the security architecture of their own state. I'll give you an example. For every service, you look at the service culture. What exactly is the culture of policing or the closest authority to us in Nigeria today? Will we say it's at par, or will you say it's below par? But if you look at it, it's below par. That's why people are complaining. Apart from service culture, you need to look at the quality of that service itself. When you see the way CPs and the people out there, the way they carry out investigation, if there's any such thing in Nigeria, again, the way they use their prejudices to punish other people, the way they oppress the public, that's not service. And then eventually you look at utility. What is the satisfaction that the consumers are deriving from the service? You see outcry everywhere. We receive information and complaints across Nigeria. In the past, since 2016 till date, Lagos, Abuja, Rivers, and all top the charts. We're getting thousands upon thousands of complaints from the service of the police. This is not armed robbery complaint. It is armed robbery by police complaint. And I think with that alone, we should have declared a state of emergency on the police itself as a structure. Of recent, some task force agents went to go and display their impunity before a police barrack, and they were disciplined. People condemned it that, why is this so, why is that so, and all. And what was the public saying? They were saying this is exactly what every Lagosian faces every day. And the government that's supposed to be serving us, they're not doing anything about it until their operatives face impunity before they are now complaining.
But do you feel frustrated? I mean, you've been on this matter for quite a number of years, yes, asking for police reform, better police performance, and also helping to intervene when persons complain about either extortion or harassment by policemen. But nothing seems to be changing, despite the fact that at a point, the Inspector General of Police promised to reorganize, to, put his feet down, but nothing seems to be changing. Well, do you feel frustrated, discouraged?
No, I don't feel discouraged. I'm actually encouraged, because sometimes we need to understand that we'll see things as obstacles in our path, but the obstacles themselves are the path. So all those things that you're seeing, from my own perspective, I see a lot of changes. We're not where we used to be, because I see the data, I see the statistics, and I see where we're coming from. The reason why this outcry is out there is because people are far more aware than they used to be. And they are bolder now to report police harassment, no matter how much they have been threatened. Before, we don't even have people coming out to testify, people coming out to press charges after they've gotten their money returned. I can tell you authoritatively that between November and January, November last year, 2019, and January this year, we've recovered over 20 million naira in extortion by police, giving back to the people. And after that, we have most people saying, we have had family meetings. My mother and my parents have decided that we don't want wahala, we don't want to press charges, just we have gotten our money, let the system do what it needs to do. But what happens then? If there's no witnesses to push further, to charge these people to court for armed robbery and the rest, they can't get dismissed. The only thing they get is maybe a reduction in rank and a transfer. But for those who are willing and bold enough to follow through and testify, these people are dismissed and charged to court instantly. So we've had several of those cases, and we also have a lot of murder cases, all the ones you've heard about. We're the ones handling most of those cases, and we're following up with them. So things are changing. Police are more responsive. The police complaint unit, in the FHQ and also at the PRO levels, they are all cooperating. There's no time that we raise an incident that is popular online or anything that they don't move into action. But because people don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. Because we are doubling down on holding them to account, they have no choice than to respond.
Interestingly, you mentioned that 20 million naira has been recovered.
More than that, anyway.
Well, extorted money. You said, was that in the past year or in how long?
Between November and
January. I'd like to ask, what is the process of that money going back to the public or the people? Once, how does that process work?
For example, you are driving on the street and then some police officers accosted you and tell you you should follow us to our station because you don't have extra steering. Or because and because of that, and they tell you your money is 100,000 naira if you want to walk free, or they charge you to court.
How do you get the money back from the police?
So the thing is, the person raises an alarm instantly. Send a text message or a tweet, or call instantly. Like, look, I'm in so place. This is what's happening, or this is what's happening. They're taking money from me. So don't struggle with a man with a gun. Let them do whatever they want to do. Transfer the money and send us the proof that you've transferred the money. Brilliant. And tell us where you are. From who and who, the nearest police station to that place, who and who are in services at that time, and they will get the DPOs and all together, and then they fish out these people. Once they fish them out, they send them straight to the police command, and then investigation goes on there. If you are not pleased with the pace of the investigation at the police command, we'll push it to the federal, to the force headquarters, and we'll bring all the squad down to the force headquarters, and then we ensure that the money is returned to the person, and then we'll continue the orderly room trial.
I'm sure what you've just said will be of interest. For persons who want to contact you, is it only on Twitter?
No. My phone number is public already. It's in the black market. Okay. I'm sure most people have it.
Okay. You know, black market. You mean the open market?
Open market.
Thank you very much, Segun Awosanya.